Rolling.
It Happened to Dad interview, take 1. There will only be one take, hopefully. To start, I was hoping you could just share a memory about Grandpa.
So I've been struggling with that because what I'm realizing is the last 4 years of his life were very difficult for me. He turned into a very different person as he aged, and our relationship became very adversarial, and a lot of it had to do with what was going on with him, with his finances, and with his attention to things that he really needed to be staying away from. So trying to think back to happier times has been a real struggle. It seems to me that whatever was going on with him the last couple of years of his life really sapped any of the joy out of the relationship that we had before then. And that's been really kind of difficult to process.
Hi, I'm calling from your bank's customer service department. We've noticed some unusual activity on your account and have put a hold on your most recent transactions.
This is your utility company calling to inform you that you will be receiving a rebate check in addition to a 30% discount on your next bill.
The purpose of this
we just
call
need a
is
little
to
more
inform you that
information
you are
before we can
eligible for
process
an
your discount
alternative
and
federal
your check.
student loan repayment plan. This plan is meant to alleviate
Due to
some
your
of the
payment
hardships
history
of
and
paying
credit
student
score, you
loans
are
on
eligible
top
for an
of the
interest
rest of
rate
your
reduction
monthly
of up to
bills.
5%.
Please respond within the
Several
next
attempts
48
have been
hours
made
if
to
you
reach out
are
to you.
You
interested.
qualify
This
for
will be our
federal
last
student loan
courtesy call
forgiveness.
before we are
After paying a
unable
small
to
fee to
reduce
our
your
company,
interest
we will be
rates.
able to refund you up to
Press 1 now if you are
75%.
We are
interested in
seeking
removing
donations for a
Please respond
disaster
immediately
relief
for more
program
information.
servicing recent victims of an
Congratulations!
earthquake
You have been
in
randomly
Southeastern
selected
Asia.
as a winner of our
Even a
company's
donation as small as $100
$100,000
This is your banking
raffle.
information.
This is
We
an
can
exciting
send
new
you
We need
investment
to confirm that
where
you
we
have a
can
bank account
guarantee
for the
you
grant.
little more
response
information.
within 1
Don't
week
worry,
to
we'll keep
ensure the
Don't
entirety
worry
of
about
your
a thing.
We have everything under control.
When I was a kid, auditor was a bad word. People thought of the IRS when you said someone was an auditor. So I remember being on the school bus when the school bus driver asked me what my dad did, and I said he was an auditor, and he gave me a look, and I said, oh no, he's the good kind of auditor. He helps people not pay too much on their insurance, that kind of stuff. And I don't know if that was entirely true, but that's kind of how my mom would frame it. That's what he did for a long time. He owned his own company, and he got defrauded. And that was the first time that I know of. He sold his company to pay for his medical bills. Eventually, in a very strange twist of fate, he ended up being a financial examiner for the state of Missouri, investigating insurance companies.
Before we go any further, there are a few things we need to get straight. My dad is an expert in elder fraud, which is defined by the Department of Justice as an act targeting older adults in which attempts are made to deceive with promises of goods, services, or financial benefits that do not exist, were never intended to be provided, or were misrepresented. Typically, elder fraud is used in reference to adults over the age of 60, a cohort which lost over $3.4 billion in the year 2023 to scammers, surpassing all other age cohorts with a near $2 billion lead. These numbers are conservative as they only include what was actually reported to the FBI and don't include reports made without a specified age. Realistically, this number may be closer to $40 billion in 1 year just for adults over 60. For many years, my grandfather was a part of this cohort of adults targeted for financial exploitation. Most of it happened just like this.
When my mom was going through her last days, we had promised her that we would take care of my dad. And as a result, we had him move in with us. One day I was sitting at my desk working and his phone rang and he picked it up, answered it, said a couple of things. I didn't pay attention, but he got up and walked out of the room. And that wasn't entirely unusual. He disappeared for a couple of minutes. And then he kind of walked by the doorway to the office on his way out the door, and he still had the phone to his ear. And that alarmed me. That was different. Something told me to get up and follow him. I got up, I tossed on some shoes, and ran out the door, and he was in the driveway backing the car out, getting ready to anyway. He was in gear. He had set the phone in the cup holder, and it was on speakerphone. And I asked him what he was doing, and he said, they're telling me I have to go to the bank. And then the voice said on the phone, I don't want you to go to the bank, I want you to go to Walgreens. Literally giving him turn-for-turn directions to the nearest Western Union. I took him the other direction and we went to his bank. We went in and the assistant manager of the branch recognized him and called him by name. He was still on his phone talking to this person who was giving us directions. And the questions coming back through the phone were, are you there yet? Have you gotten to the stoplight? Things like this. I mean, it's a 10-minute drive to the bank, so they, were on the phone this entire time. The assistant manager named Amanda came out and said, hi, Art, how are you doing? And it's great to see you. I told her, Dad has a scammer on the phone who is telling him to go to Western Union and take out money. And Amanda said, Art, give me the phone. And he didn't want to. He was really reluctant, but he eventually gave her the phone. And she spoke to the person. She basically told the scammer, I am the assistant branch manager of this branch of this bank. You are not getting any money from this man. And we will be closing his accounts and reopening them with different numbers and etc. And the scammer hung up. The persistence of the scammer was almost something to be admired. It didn't matter that I had gotten in the car. Didn't matter that we weren't actually going there, we were heading to a bank instead. They stuck with it. Even when they were talking to Amanda on the phone, they tried to insist that it was completely legitimate. As I started to look into it, started tracing his cell phone calls. He was getting 40 and 50 cell phone calls a day. This is a man in his 80s who's outlived his entire family, and he's getting 40 phone calls a day. He was making 10 or 15 calls, calling numbers back that called and left messages because he didn't understand. We came to realize that my dad's entire perception of reality was stuck inside this web of scams. So many people think that they can outsmart the scammer. You can outsmart the one that you know is a scammer. Where you're going to struggle is the one that you don't realize is a scammer. Con artists are very talented at what they do. They're very charismatic. They know how to say the right things to people in order to win their favor. A good con artist is in it for the long haul. Scammers and con artists target people in a predatory manner. They go after the elderly because they are a much easier target. No one is too smart to be caught in a scam. It is wrong-minded to think that because scams have nothing to do with intelligence, they have to do with emotion. Studies show that the elderly tend to be targeted more because they have an increased trust. They also have lost a little bit of their ability to manage or detect risk. And then there's the social parts of it where the elderly often tend to be lonely. My opinion is the best defense against fraud against the elderly is being involved in their lives as a younger person. When folks are getting caught up in these scams, a lot of times they send junk to them. So if you're visiting someone's house and there's a lot of trinkets that just don't fit or make sense that they're coming into, there's a chance they're on somebody's list somewhere. If you're seeing a lot of secretive phone calls, if secretive behavior in general and being a little sketchy on what's going on or what was that phone call about or why'd you have to leave the room to talk to somebody, those are all signs that you need to watch for. My dad shut down insurance companies that were corrupt. He closed them down. He was on lists to get called from the government when people got out of jail. That's how big of a deal some of these things he did were. He is getting scammed on these easy peasy one-off scams. It's pervasive and anyone can fall for these things.